get go.
Just want to start today with a trigger warning disclaimer. This podcast contains descriptions of death and drowning. Hi, I'm Katie Carpenter.
I'm Terry Kovanitz.
We apologize for any and all mistakes today as we begin this episode of Titanic Transcripts.
George Moore, you've been sworn. Please state your age and residence.
51 years old, Graham Road, Southampton.
And what is your occupation?
Able Seaman, sir.
State what drills, if any, there were when you got on the Titanic, or the ship's crew, what their character was, and what occurred of any significance during your trip from Southampton to the point of the collision.
We joined the ship on Wednesday morning, the 10th of April, and had a boat drill and proceeded at 12 o'clock. We called at Cherbourg and Queenstown.
How many participated in that boat drill? How many men took part in that boat drill?
All the able seamen, sir.
And how many were there?
I could not say the exact number, but about 30 to 40.
And how many boats did you have out?
We lowered 2 boats in the water.
Go on.
On a Sunday, it came in rather cold, Sunday afternoon. Sunday night, about 11:45, I was on the watch below when I turned in, and there was suddenly a noise like a cable running out, like a ship dropping anchor. There was not any shock at all. About 10 minutes to 12, the boatswain came and piped all hands on boat deck and started to get out boats.
What did that mean, that the entire crew was to go up to the boat deck?
All the able seamen.
Would that include firemen?
It had nothing to do with firemen, only the 2 watches, the port and starboard watches.
How many were there of them? About 40?
No, 13 in one watch and 12 in the other. Then there was a man who used to work in the alleyway, and there were promenade daymen, saloon daymen, and second-class daymen.
How many in all?
How many able seamen?
Yes.
There were 6 quartermasters, 6 lookout men, 13 in the port watch, 12 in the starboard watch, and 7 day hands.
Do those men constitute the crews of the boats in case of an emergency?
Yes, sir.
Are any others included?
Yes, sir.
And who are the others?
In emergency?
Yes. Are they the only men who are expected to report when there's a call for the boats?
When there's an order, boat stations, everyone goes to boat stations. Firemen, stewards, and all are called. There is a list showing where each man is to go. Every man in the ship has a fire station and a boat station. But in case of emergency, when there is a man overboard or anything like that, it is only the watch on deck, the boat's crew, that is called.
What was the call on this occasion? Simply for the boat's crew?
So far as I can say, all the seamen from the forecastle were ordered up to clear away the boats and take off the boat covers.
That would mean about 40 men would have to go up there?
Yes, sir.
Were any others expected to go up there on that call, firemen or stewards?
I cannot answer for those. They do not come under our department.
Very well. When this call came, do you think the 40 men were there?
Oh, yes, they all went on the boat deck.
If there were 20 boats, that would make about 2 men to a boat.
Yes, sir.
Is that considered sufficient?
That's the rule generally, sir. 2 seamen to each boat.
Very well. Go on and tell what happened.
Well, I went on the starboard side of the boat deck and helped clear the boats. Swung 3 of the boats out, helped to lower number 5 and number 7. When we swung number 3 out, I was told to jump in the boat and pass the ladies in. I was told that by the first officer. After we got so many ladies in, and there were no more about, we took in men passengers. We had about 32 in the boat all told, and then we lowered away.
How many of those 32 were men and how many women?
I could not say how many were women.
Can you tell how many men there were?
No, sir, I could not say exactly.
How many seamen were in the boat?
2 seamen were in the boat.
Do you recall whether there were 5 or 6 men passengers besides?
Yes, there were a few men passengers, and there were some firemen in the boat.
How many firemen?
I should say there were 5 or 6 firemen.
And how did they get in the boat?
After all the ladies and children that were about there got in, I suppose anyone jumped in then.
What officer was there?
The first officer, Mr. Murdoch.
Did he tell these men to go in?
No, sir, he never told them. He got all the women and children in, and then the men started to jump in, and when we thought we had a boat full there, we lowered away.
You think there were 5 or 6 firemen in the boat, do you?
Yes, I'm sure of that.
Were there any stewards?
No, not one steward.
Were there any engineers?
Nope, no engineers.
Any stewardesses?
No, sir.
What officer did you have in that boat?
No officer at all, sir.
Who took charge of the boat?
I took charge of the boat.
You had the tiller?
Yes, sir.
Why did you not take more than 32 in that boat?
That is not up to me, sir. That was for the officer up on top.
Did you not think at the time that it ought to have been more heavily loaded?
It seemed pretty full, but I dare say we could have jammed more in. The passengers were not anxious to get in the boats. They were not anxious to get in the first lot of boats.
And what was your feeling at the time?
I thought myself that there was nothing serious the matter until we got away from the ship and she started settling down.
You would have been as well pleased to have stayed on the ship as to get on the lifeboat?
I would at that time, sir.
How soon after getting in the water did you see that the ship was sinking?
After we pulled the distance away, sir, you could see your head gradually going down.
Where were most of the passengers on the ship at the time you left the ship and when you could see the passengers?
When we started lowering the boats, all I saw was first-class ladies and gentlemen, all lined up with their life belts on and coming out of the saloon. I could not say what was on the after part of the ship at all. There was a lot of space between the boats.
Where were the steerage passengers, do you think?
I could not answer that. I should say they were making for the boat deck as well.
There was nothing to prevent them from coming up to any part of the ship, was there?
No, sir.
Did they show any disorder?
No, sir.
Was it your view that the ship wasn't an unsinkable ship?
That was the talk.
Was that the general idea of the crew on the ship?
Yes, sir.
You knew that there were not enough boats to accommodate the entire crew and the passenger list?
I knew there were only 20 boats, and I knew they would not carry all the people.
And how many did you estimate a boat ought to carry?
50 or 60 in a boat.
And 50 in a boat would make 1,000, and 60 in a boat would make 1,200.
Yes, sir.
So all the crew knew that the boats were not sufficient to carry all the passengers and crew off.
I suppose they did, sir.
But they regarded the ship as unsinkable.
Well, yes, sir.
Who was the officer in charge on the starboard side where you loaded these boats?
Mr. Murdoch was one. He's the only one I recognized.
Did you know Mr. Ismay?
No, sir.
He was not pointed out to you?
No, sir.
Do you know any of the passengers on the ship by name?
No, sir.
Did all the women who went on your boat go there willingly, or were some of them forced on?
They were not forced on at all. They all went of their own will.
Did any of the ladies on your boat come back to the ship after being put into the lifeboat?
Oh, no. We got clear of the ship as soon as we were lowered in the water.
Did you take any passengers on your boat in the water?
No, sir.
How far were you from the ship when it sank?
I should say just over a quarter of a mile, sir.
You heard the cries of the people in the water, did you not?
Yes, sir. Everybody heard that, sir.
Did you see the ship go down?
Yes, sir.
What was the appearance of the ship at that point of time?
I saw the forward part of her go down, and it appeared to me as if she broke in half, and then the after part went, and I can remember 2 explosions.
Did your boat make any effort to go back?
No, sir.
Why not?
All the people in the boat wanted to get clear of the ship. They did not want to go near her. They kept urging me to keep away, to pull away from her. In fact, they wanted to get further away.
Did you make any effort to go back to the ship?
No, sir.
Why did you not go back and attempt to rescue some of the people who were sinking?
Well, sir, we were about a quarter mile away, and the cries did not last long. I do not think anybody could live much more than 10 minutes in that cold water. If we had gone back, we would have only had the boat swamped.
Do you think it would have been swamped?
Yes, if there were any alive. 5 or 6 pulling on that boat's gunwales would no doubt have capsized the boat.
Mr. Moore, how long have you been at sea?
17 years, sir.
Have you seen ice frequently?
No, sir. I do not generally come this way in the winter time. I go on the Bombay route.
Have you ever seen ice before?
Well, yes, I have seen ice before.
Do you know whether it is customary for ships to slow down when they know that ice is in the vicinity, or do they keep on relying upon their ability to steer clear?
I think they go more to the southward when there is ice.
How about slowing down?
Could not answer as to that.
What did you row for? To what point did you row, or in what direction?
We started to pull away in the boat. There was one bright light away on the starboard bow, 2 or 3 miles away, I should judge.
And you rowed for that light?
Yes, sir. While we were rowing, we came on small ice. You could see small ice in the distance.
That night, before dawn?
Yes, we got away from it.
You were surrounded by ice at dawn, were you not?
Yes, at dawn.
Is it your idea that when the ship struck, it was near all this ice at the time?
I could not say that, sir.
When you looked out that night after you struck, did you see any iceberg?
I never saw any ice at all until after we got away in the boat.
Did you see very much then?
Well, no, sir, it did not look like much.
Was it high?
No, sir, it was low.
But the ice you saw in the morning was high.
Yes, there was ice all around in the morning.
Was it your idea that the ice had floated down in your direction, or did you think you had floated down into it?
I believe the ice we saw in the morning was to the northward of where the Titanic had gone down.
Do you think that ice had been to the northward of the Titanic?
Yes, sir.
And was slowly coming down?
Yes. There were lots of bergs around, and there was a great field of ice, I should say between 20 and 30 miles long.
Solid ice?
Yes, the stretch of ice was very low, but there were also big bergs.
Would it have been possible for a ship to make its way among that ice?
No, sir.
It would have to avoid it altogether.
Yes, sir.
Did the Carpathia have to exercise much care in getting out of the ice?
When we went aboard the Carpathia, there was ice all around, and I believe after I got aboard, we had to steam all around it.
And was the ice to the northward of you then?
That I could not say, because I never knew the direction the ship's head was.
Well, the ship soon took a direction toward the southwest, did it not?
I could not say.
Well, it must have done so in order to go to New York.
I should say it went to the westward, sir.
Then, were these icebergs to the north of your ship at that time, or the south?
I could not say. I do not know what direction the ship was when she started steaming away.
Take that entire crew. Do you think that entire crew was able to work together as well as if that ship had been running for 6 months or a year?
Oh, yes, sir. I think they were all trained men, sir. They were all able seamen.
And they knew their business?
Yes, sir.
Do you think they could work together with the same effectiveness?
Yes, sir.
There were about 750 crew and passengers saved, and your boats were able to accommodate about 50 per boat, which would make 1,000, or at the rate of 60, 1,200. How do you account for it that more were not saved?
Well, I should say that in the first lot of boats that went away, people were not eager to get in them. All the people around about were put in the boat and they were lowered away, sir.
Were they urged to get into the boats?
They were told to come along and jump in, ladies and children first.
When there were no more ladies and children, were the men urged to get in?
Anyone could jump in then, as far as I know, to fill the boat up and get it away.
How many could you safely lower to the water 70 feet below in one of those boats? What would you regard as a wise method of loading those boats from the boat deck?
I should say from 30 to 40 people.
And then you would expect to take on more when the boat got in the water?
We could have taken more, sir.
Did you wait there at all for the people to offer themselves when you got down to the water?
No, we were told to go clear of the ship.
And were you given any instructions to pull in any particular direction?
No, sir. I think everyone pulled toward this white light.
What did you think that light was at the time?
I thought it was a fisherman. That is what I thought. It was only just one single light.
Did that light disappear?
We kept pulling for it until daylight, and we could not see a thing of it then.
Did you have this light in view all the time while you were pulling at the oars?
Yes, sir.
How far do you think you pulled from the point where the ship went down?
I could hardly say.
Do you suppose you pulled as far as 10 miles?
No, sir. We were going against the current.
Oh, was there a current?
I should say so, sir. We kept the boat's head to the wind. We kept going toward this white light.
You were sure that the light was there?
Yes, sir.
It was a genuine light, you think?
Yes, one bright light.
There were 750 saved in all, and of them, 210 belonged to the crew. And of the 210, about 15 were women, stewardesses. How do you account for the fact that such a large proportion of these people saved belonged to the crew?
I can only account for the seamen being saved, 2 in each boat. That would number just about the number of seamen who were saved.
That would be about 40.
Yes, and I think there were 39 saved.
How do you account for the 79 or 80 firemen being saved?
I could not answer as to that.
Did they rush into the boats?
I do not think there was any rush at all, sir. I think a few were picked up in the water.
Okay, that is all I have for you today. You can be excused. William H. Taylor has been sworn. Please state your age and residence.
28 years old, number 2 Broad Street, Kingland, Southampton.
What is your occupation?
I'm a fireman, sir.
And you were on the Titanic?
Yes.
Tell your story from the time you shipped until you got on the Carpathia.
I was asleep when the accident occurred, sir. The alarm bell for accidents rang outside of our door. I went up on deck and I could not see anything, so I went down in our room again. I stayed in the room about 10 minutes, and somebody reported that there was water in number 1 hatch. Then we packed our bags, took them in the mess room in the alleyway to wait for orders. The officer was coming along the alleyway and ordered us to put on life belts. The life belts were on the deck, on the boat deck. They shoved out number 15 boat, and I was ordered into it. The boat was pretty full. We pulled a distance away from the Titanic because we were afraid of the suction, and we kept on pulling toward the light with the other rowboats. About 7:30 the next morning, we boarded the Carpathia.
And you got into boat number 15.
Yes, sir.
Did you help load any of the other boats?
No, sir. There was too much of a crowd on. There was a crowd around them at the time. This boat was the only boat that was in the blocks when I went on deck.
Were you one of the men charged with the duty of appearing when the lifeboats were ordered?
Not at that time, sir.
Did you belong to the lifeboat drill?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever drilled on that steamer with the lifeboat drill?
No, sir.
How often was it customary to have such a drill?
The custom is to have one on Sunday morning in New York.
And how about Southampton?
The firemen never see a boat in Southampton.
Take the ordinary fireman. How often would he engage in a boat drill?
Once a trip, sir.
Were you a good oarsman?
Yes, sir.
Have you been previously assigned to boat number 15?
Yes, sir.
And that was your place?
Yes, that was my place.
How many of the crew got in lifeboat number 15?
I could not tell you that, sir. I know there were 6 ordered to get into the boat. If there were any more, I could not say.
And how many passengers were in the boat?
I never counted them, and I never heard them counted.
Was the boat full?
Yes, sir.
And how many would it carry?
I suppose it would average about 40 to 45 in the boat.
Would not the boat carry more than that?
I suspect they would carry more if they were put in.
Why did you not put in more?
Because the officer ordered the boat to be lowered.
Did you get into the boat from the boat deck?
Yes.
Then did the other members of the crew get on there?
At the boat deck.
And then it was lowered down to deck A?
That is correct, sir.
And then the passengers got on?
Yes, sir.
Who was directing the passengers?
A lot of stewards were around directing the passengers, and there was an officer up on the boat deck then, sir.
But he could not see the people down on deck A, could he?
He was looking over to see who was getting into the boats.
Did you see Mr. Ismay during this time?
No.
Did you know Mr. Ismay at that time?
No.
What officer was in charge on that side?
I could not tell you what officer was in charge on that side.
And who was in command of your boat?
A fireman.
And what was his name?
Dimmel.
How many women were in your boat?
Quite a number. There were mostly women and children in our boat.
Were there any male passengers in the boat?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember how many?
No.
They got on at deck A.
After the women and children were in.
Were there any other women and children on deck A when you left there at that time?
I never saw any.
Would you have seen them if they had been there?
Yes, if they had been there.
Do you remember who the passengers were?
No. They were third-class passengers, that's all I know.
Were there any stewardesses?
No.
There were about 750 saved in all, including the crew, were they not?
I could not tell you how many were saved.
Do you know how many of the crew were saved?
I do not know how many of the crew were saved, but I know there were 73 firemen saved.
How many firemen were there in all?
There were 84 firemen on each watch, including trimmers and all.
And about how many watches were there?
3 watches.
There would be 252 firemen in all?
Yes, that is, not counting the greasers. I do not know how many greasers there are in an engine room.
And you say 73 firemen were saved?
Yes.
How do you account for the fact that so many of them were saved?
I could not tell you, sir.
Were many of them put into the boats?
Not that I know of.
Were any of them picked up in the water by the boats?
Yes, there were some.
Many?
I could not tell you how many there were.
Were all the crew on your boat firemen?
There were some stewards in the boat besides.
How many firemen and how many stewards were there in your boat?
About 6 firemen. I could not tell you how many stewards there were. I only saw 3.
And what proportion of your entire boatload was composed of men?
I believe 8 all told, oarsmen and a coxswain.
Did any of the male passengers row?
Only one that I know of.
When your boat got away from the ship, where were most of the passengers that were left, and where were the members of the crew that were left? In what part of the ship?
They were all on A deck, sir, on the deck we were lowered from, all that I could see.
Was it crowded?
Oh, there was a crowd. It was a big crowd around the boats.
Was the order and discipline good, or was there disorder?
The order was good, sir.
Did these passengers belong to all classes, steerage as well as cabin passengers?
Yes, sir.
Were there any on B deck?
I could not tell you that, sir.
Or C deck?
I could not tell you.
Could you not see?
I could not see because we kept the boat off the ship to keep from rubbing down her side.
How far did you row from the ship immediately after getting into the water?
About a quarter of a mile, or it might have been a bit farther than that.
Toward the light, you say?
Yes, with the other boats.
Was there any order given to you to row for the light?
No, sir.
How did you come to row for that light?
I just kept on rowing, sir.
And where was the light?
It was a tidy away from us.
Was it on a ship?
I could not tell you.
Did that light disappear?
Yes, sir.
Was it 5 miles away, would you think?
It was a good distance away. I could not tell you the distance.
Did it appear to be the light of a ship?
Yes, sir.
But you could not see the ship?
No, sir.
During the night, before the dawn came, could you see any of the icebergs?
No, sir. Not before the break of day.
Was it a clear night?
Pretty clear, yes, sir.
There was no fog?
No fog at all.
Were there stars out?
Yes, it was a starry night.
How do you account for it that you could not see the icebergs?
We saw them at daybreak.
Why could you not see them at night?
They were too far away. We were pulling toward them all the time.
And then you got among them in the morning when the day broke?
Yes, sir.
Were there many of them?
We saw 4.
Do you know in what direction you rowed?
No, sir.
North, south, east, or west?
I could not tell you in what direction. We just kept on pulling, and that is all I do know.
Did you see the iceberg upon which the ship struck?
No, sir. I was asleep at the time.
Were you very much disturbed by the collision?
No, sir.
Have you been on other ships?
Yes, sir.
For how many years?
8 years now.
During that trip, were there the same drills and mustering of the crew that you have observed on other ships?
No. On other ships, you go through a strict drill.
You go through a strict drill?
Yes.
How often?
Every Saturday afternoon.
Did you have any drill on Saturday afternoon on the Titanic?
No.
Do you know why?
No.
Is it always the case that they have a drill on Saturday afternoon on other ships?
On a majority of the other ships, sir.
Did the fireman take part in that drill?
Oh, yeah.
Does every man in a ship's crew have a place?
Yes, sir.
In reference to what?
With reference to manning a boat, I suppose to take charge of the boat and pull the boat away if necessary.
And there were about 800 of this crew, were there not?
I suppose so, sir.
And there were about 20 boats.
20 boats.
Do you think that every man in the crew was assigned to a particular boat?
Yes, because there's a boat list that goes up.
What was the nature of that order that night with reference to the boats?
All the orders we had was to get our lifebelts on and to go up on the boat deck.
And then you were expected, each of you, to go to a boat.
We were supposed to go to the boat that our name was down for on the ship.
Were there very many of the crew there when you went up?
We were all going up, what there was of us.
Would both dining room stewards and bedroom stewards be assigned to these boats?
Yes, sir.
And all the engine men?
Yes, sir.
And the carpenters?
Yes, sir.
Every man had his place?
Every man had the number of his boat that he was to go to.
On the port side, they put in, on average, in each boat, only about 2 men of the crew, and sometimes less. How do you account for the fact that there were so few?
I could not tell you, sir. I never went on that side of the ship.
On the other side, there were a large number of the ship's crew?
Yes, there were stewards and all.
And they were waiting there to be assigned to their places, were they? They were waiting, expecting to be put into boats?
Yes, sir.
But no man could get into a boat before he was ordered in.
No, sir.
And who selected the men to go in the boats?
The officer, sir.
You say you found water up to number 1 hatch.
Yes, sir.
And what is number 1 hatch?
It is in the bow end of the ship, sir.
And how far down?
Right down to the bottom, sir.
Is there a compartment there?
Yes.
A very large one?
Yes, sir.
Is that the term applied to the first compartment?
That is the first hold in the ship. That is the first cargo space in the ship.
Oh, does that hatch cover more than one compartment? You know what a compartment is, do you not?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember whether in that hatch there was only one compartment, or whether 2 or 3?
I could not tell you that, sir, because I never saw down there.
How did you know there was water in number 1 hatch?
Because we saw it come bursting up through the hatches.
You were there all the time, were you?
I was in my bunk asleep at the time, and then when we got called up again, the water was still coming through the hatches.
And what is a hatch?
A grate that covers the hold to save anybody, to keep anybody from getting down.
Were you in the water?
No, sir.
Did it reach you?
Yes, afterwards. It went to our room afterwards.
How long was it in getting there?
About 3/4 of an hour, sir.
How far was your room from the bottom of the ship?
I could not exactly tell you the distance.
What deck was your room on?
On the 3rd deck.
From below?
From the top, counting from the top.
Where did that stand with reference to decks A, B, and C?
I could not tell you, sir.
It was below them, was it not?
Our deck was lower than those decks because you came off those decks down to the well deck.
Did you have a hammock or a bed, or what did you have?
I had a bunk.
And what deck was that on?
On the 3rd deck down.
How far did you say that was from the bottom of the ship?
20 or 30 feet, I should say, sir.
Did your boat make any effort to go back and save the lives of the people struggling in the water?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because the majority of them said pull on because of the suction.
You heard the cries of the people who were in the water.
Yes.
How long did they last?
10 minutes or 1/4 of an hour, sir.
Do you not think the people floating in that water with life belts on would survive longer than 1/4 of an hour?
They may have survived longer, sir. I'm only just judging the time.
Was the water very cold?
Yes, it was cold.
Your boat did not pick up anybody from the water.
No, sir.
Did you not see any other boats pick up anybody?
No, sir.
Did you see any firemen or any of the crew jump from the ship itself into the water?
No, sir.
Do you know whether any did so jump prior to your leaving the ship?
No, sir.
What was the feeling among the crew as to whether the ship would sink or not?
A majority of them did not realize that she would sink.
Was that ship regarded by the crew as an unsinkable ship?
So they thought.
That was the feeling among the seamen?
Yes, sir, that is so.
Regarding these great iron ships with watertight compartments, that is a general feeling among the seamen, is it?
Yes, sir.
And they feel safe on them?
Yes.
Even although there are not enough boats to accommodate all the crew and passengers?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever hear that matter discussed among them?
No, sir.
Then how do you know that is the feeling?
Because they were all skylarking and joking about it.
After the accident, they were joking about it?
Yes, sir.
If they had realized that there was a serious danger, there would have been a terrible scene there, would there not?
Yes, sir. Everybody would have been rushing for their lives.
When you got onto the boat, did you feel that it was safer in the boat or remaining on the ship?
I thought it was safer for us in the boat.
And why did you think that?
Because I saw her then going down by the nose.
Going down by the bow?
Yes, sir.
You realized then that she was sinking.
After we got clear of her, we could see her going down by the bow.
But you did not realize that at the time you got into the lifeboat?
No, sir. I only thought we were getting in case there was an emergency.
Did you row all the time that night until dawn?
Yes, sir.
Did you row for any particular place?
No, no particular place.
Why did you keep rowing then?
We kept on pulling along to keep up with the other boats, all the small boats being together.
Was there any particular boat leading?
No, sir.
Did you see any other boat save any lives of people who were in the water?
No, sir.
How far could you see on the water that night? How far off could you see another boat?
About 50 yards.
Could you see the boat itself, or could you just simply determine it by its lights?
We could see the boats.
Did you talk with any of the lookout men?
No, sir.
What was the feeling amongst the crew as to how the accident had occurred?
I could not tell you.
In which direction was that light?
I could not tell you the direction.
But all the boats were rowing for it?
Yes, sir.
And you were sure there was a light there?
We discerned a light. We saw a light in the distance.
Was that the case with all the boats?
Yes, sir.
They could not have all been deceived by it, could they?
I should not think so.
Were they crying out to each other at all as to where the light was?
No, they only asked one another where they were at the time, that is all. They would just pass the remark whether they were all there.
Were there any women in your boat who had lost their husbands?
I could not tell you.
Was there much distress among the women in your boat?
They were very cool.
Were the women in your boat first-class passengers, second-class, or third-class?
They were third class. I do not know whether there were any second class.
There were no third-class passengers?
No.
Okay, that is all I have for you for now. You can be excused. Okay, so William H. Taylor, he said there was an alarm bell for accidents that rang outside.
Yeah, so we haven't heard anybody else say that, so I wonder if it's just in the firemen's area, because we have heard other people say, oh, all the firemen, ran up with their bags, and he says, we heard the alarm, we packed our bags, we were just waiting on...
Oh, so only they got the alarm.
So I think it's maybe because they're emergency personnel.
Oh.
I'm making assumptions here, but that's my guess.
But the senator was so accusatory about how many firemen lived.
Yeah.
Shame on you guys.
I think it's just proximity, and also because they're emergency. And the
alarm
water was
bell.
Eventually, too, he says he sees the water in the hatch, but then it came to his room, too.
Right.
So
they knew it was serious.
Because water was flooding their rooms.
While everybody else was joking.
And skylarking.
Yeah. Too much
skylarking about.
So, they knew it was serious from the get-go.
Because then he says also, when he goes up, there's a crowd. But he's also not leaving until number 15 boat.
Right.
So, towards the end, all the testimonies are saying, well, at first I didn't think, there was a problem. And when they ask, would you rather be on the ship or the boat? Everybody says Titanic at first.
But not him.
But then towards the end, because he's one of the last boats.
Saw the water getting on up in there.
Yeah, he saw the water getting up there, and then it's in his room. And for some reason, the senator asks if he has a hammock or a bed.
Maybe to see how big the quarters were?
I guess. He had a bunk. Maybe to see how high the water, but it's in the room regardless, whether it's down low or up.
So mysterious. Mysterious.
But now we know he has a bunk.
Yes. And about, how do you account that you couldn't see icebergs very well?
It's nighttime.
They were black at night, so they would kind of blend in.
And then we're getting to, the one guy says that they were low also, so you probably wouldn't be very likely to see that if you're looking around for, these 100-feet bergs that you see later in the morning. Of course, he's asked about Ismay.
Oh, always, yeah.
And of course, he sees the light too.
But I like that he wasn't rowing for it in particular.
Just to stay with the boat.
It's where we're going.
We got to stay together.
Everybody's going, I'm going.
Well, you don't want to be one boat that accidentally
all alone
floats away
in the middle
from
of
all
the
the other boats. And then the Carpathia comes, gets everybody else, and you're on the opposite end.
Sometimes I'm alone. Oh, yeah, that was very cute, but so unorganized.
Yeah.
That they had no concept of what do we do once we get in these boats and get them off the ship.
Yeah, except to just get away, because they're all scared of the suction. So they're all getting away. But so what would you do? Just stay with the other boats? No planning ahead. And there were a few discrepancies that I was like, What'd you tell?
Well, just little things like that that the drills are on Saturday afternoons, not Sunday. And also that at the end when he's saying about the third-class passengers and then the senators.
Oh, yeah.
So there were no third-class passengers? Oh, no one.
No third-class passengers. So they were from the third class? Yes.
Those were very...
Yeah. But also, I don't expect, he's a fireman and gets into the boat that he's assigned to and he rows and, he's doing his job. And he's not the first to, not have counted or not have been like, hey, while we're rowing, does everybody want to introduce themselves and talk about where they're from?
Yeah, what brings you here tonight?
Let's do a little icebreaker. Yeah. Oh, poor choice of words. But
Sorry, that was bad and funny. And then all I know about him is that following the sinking of the Titanic, he never returned to the sea. But he had, land-based dock work that he was doing.
Okay.
And then, so he worked there for, 2 years, but then he was crushed by a host, when he was dismantling something.
Oh, my goodness.
And then he died, so, yeah. Oh! I know.
So the sea still wasn't good to him.
No, the sea had him.
Sorry, Taylor.
No matter what, we're taking you, sir. And that's that for Taylor.
Okay, now we go on to more. Old guy, 51.
That is old.
We don't get, just comparatively speaking to our, most of our crew is
started out in diapers.
So he's 51, so he's definitely old chap. and you go.
Oh, no, I thought it was interesting that because he's not a fireman, how to have the two together to hear what the fireman's opinion was and what the what a seaman's opinion was. It was very interesting.
But they still both were very stuck to their jobs, did what I did, got in the boat, was told to get down. Why didn't you have more? Because we were told to lower, this is what we were told to do.
But he does mention that the firemen were not told to get in. They just
they
got in.
Just, they appeared.
They saw some space and there was no women, so they hopped in.
But then it's a little bit different, too, because he goes down in number 3 boat. And
right.
So he's of the camp of, I would have just stayed on the ship, and
right.
There weren't many because nobody thought we had to get in yet, and
they were still having their cocktails.
There wasn't a crowd,
which is so no wonder there was no panic, and everybody was as quiet as at church.
It's unsinkable
because there was no panic. They were just like, "Oh, get the girls, go on, get on the boat."
Yeah, if you want.
That makes more sense as we travel along.
And he mentions the light as well, but I like his opinion too that he just thought it was a fisherman, a single light. I like that everybody's got their own. I mean, the light was definitely there.
Yes,
but everyone has their own idea of what it was. And I feel like, is the only one to say about the low.
Right, yes.
20 to 30 miles of just like a sheet of ice.
Yeah.
That's
and
wild.
that someone on the other side would have to go all the way around.
Yeah.
And we don't know how wide it was the other way.
So that's a bit wild. And I'm surprised nobody else has mentioned it either.
So you could see a ship on the other side, and there's nothing either of y'all can do.
Yeah.
Wow, that's yikey.
It's a bit rough. And he was asked about Ismay, of course.
Wow.
And then, again, with the firemen, they're really pressing, like, oh, how did so many of them survive? But like I said, I just think it's proximity. They ran up with their bags packed because water was in their room, and also they had an alarm bell to notify them. It doesn't sound like it went off across the whole ship.
No. But the seamen were right on point.
Exactly. 2 to boat.
Supposed to have 40, we got 39.
Yep.
No, we're not messing up any of these rules.
Yep. I think this guy is kind of like I don't know, because I'm curious to hear what his future holds. But to me, he sounds like, a proper old seaman that, does what he's got to do. And
he was the only one so far that's talked about a current and the wind.
That's true. I mean, that had to be very difficult, because also they're following this light, but it's against the current.
And wind.
So no wonder they didn't get too far. The senators are always guessing these, 10 miles, they're like, a quarter mile.
Yeah,
but it must have been rough.
Yeah, and then cold water and wind.
Yeah, and he's the only one, too,
that's a long night.
Well, maybe. I can't remember if he's the only one, but he says that he doesn't think that anyone would have survived more than 10 minutes.
Because of the cold, right. So, he was interesting. Well, following the disaster, he continued to work at the sea in both commercially and military capacities. And then in 1920, this was just really, really interesting, he was aboard a ship working, and he was diagnosed with smallpox. So they put him ashore in Yemen. And,
oh, jeez.
And his shelter was just a thatched roof. No sides, just a roof. And there was a boy that brought him food and set it and then left, and then he would come and get the
at least
food.
Someone was taking care of him.
And then there was a priest that would call out to him as he went past to see if he was still alive.
Oh, my goodness. What an isolating
really
experience.
Rough.
That's a proper quarantine.
Do not get smallpox on a ship.
But and then did they go back and pick him up?
But he got better, So,
okay, that's good.
So he lived till he was 63 years old.
Wow.
But wow.
Wait, so did they swing back around to check if he was...
No, not that ship. No.
Oh, he just
got better, and then Guess I can go back out there then.
Anyone want to come get me?
Yeah.
No cell phone.
And also, I just have to say that he was one of the lookouts. So I'm really disappointed that they didn't tell us anything about... Yeah,
he doesn't even say. They don't mention it at all.
Was he... Oh, maybe he wasn't
He wasn't one of the 2 that was on, though, I don't think.
Or that went up afterwards.
I can't remember their names, but...
Must not be, or they would have said something,
Yeah, it's weird, because he doesn't even say it either. Right. He just says able seaman.
So that must just be... He must not have been looking out at any of this time during that,
Very interesting,
So, really interesting and really shocking.
Yeah.
So that's all we have.
That's nice of the people of Yemen to have taken care of
the priest. Yeah,
I would be like,
you're still alive.
Hoo-hoo!
Man. Hello. Yeah.
Wow. How wild.
Yep. So that's it for now, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Just a note from the readers, we want to thank you guys for listening, and we really value your feedback, so please let us know what you're thinking, either in the comments or at titanictranscripts@gmail.com.